Welcome to the Nobody Guide to Life, where we provide tips and tools for personal growth, personal development, and your spiritual journey that you can use right now in your everyday life. I'm J.A. Plosker. Thank you for joining us. Find out more at nobodysview.com or thenobodybible.com, or you can join our Facebook group, Simple Spirituality. Also, check us out at Twitter and Facebook at Nobody's View. If you like what you hear on the podcast, we'd welcome a subscription or a review. We'd really appreciate it. So, Thursday was the summer solstice for those of you in the Northern Hemisphere. And that means that it was the longest day of the year and the shortest night. I probably didn't need to say that second part because it's probably pretty obvious. But anyway, the light shines longest on this day, unless you're in a place where it's raining, in which case the sun is still shining, but you sort of have to take it on faith. So I had originally planned something else for this episode, but when I was reminded that it was the solstice, I thought I would just cobble together some thoughts on it to share with you. So how did you spend it? I sat inside and worked as usual because it was a weekday. It was a few days ago. But fortunately, since it was the longest day, I had lots of time to get outside in the evening and enjoy it. So I'm looking to make some improvements in the yard that are long overdue. I want to make it a more inviting space. So there's a lot of improvements to make back there. And so this is a nice time of year to make that happen. And there's something about that longest day, the 21st of June, that makes it seem like there's more time in general. And that's a good thing. You know, it's a real treat because if you're anything like me, there never seems to be enough time in the day. And if there is, it still feels sometimes like everything just smears together, light and dark together. So when one task ends, another begins, and it forms a cycle. So I guess it's, in that sense, I guess it's a lot like the seasons, and it's always in continuous motion, just this wheel of seasons in a day. We live all year in a day. I think there was a short story by Ray Bradbury called All Summer in a Day. It was this, I think it was a depressing, I think I saw that years ago. If I remember right, it was about a girl who moves to another planet. And I think the sun only shines, I can't remember if it's months or I think it takes years for the sun to come out and it only comes out for a little bit. And she misses it because I think some of the other kids on the planet aren't very nice to her. I'll see if I can find that story. And if I can, I'll share it in the show notes. But anyway, this whole business of solstices and whatnot, it got me thinking about these seasons of life as they happen in a day. And it starts with waking up. And that's when the seasons begin, and it continues with breakfast. Then work comes up. And then there's a small meal break, if you're lucky to get lunch, followed by more work. And then once that's over, there's another meal. And then if you're lucky, again, there's some time, you get to spend on the hobbies that you love or with the animals that you really cherish or the people you love. That's the good stuff. That's the summer of life. That's the stuff that we want to last. And there may be something else in there that you enjoy. And then you head for bed and the cycle starts over when the alarm goes off the next morning. And life gets like that sometimes, doesn't it? This never-ending cycle turns our life into a wheel of business or a loop of stress, or at least it seems that way. It's not really so much anymore about enjoying the sights or feeling the different temperatures or noticing how things are changing outside. It really just becomes this, like we said, this wheel of business, this wheel of stress. So the funny thing is that the moments of life, they're all unique. So like leaves on a tree in the fall or snowflakes in the winter, they're all unique. But just like leaves when they pile up or snow when it becomes a snowdrift, all that uniqueness just blends together and it just becomes one indistinguishable mass. Those unique properties don't really matter when things start to pile up. We just want to rake it up or shovel it away. I remember I went to college in the Midwest, and sometimes it felt like the winter days weren't, it wasn't December 26th or January 10th. It was just a gray day and a long line of gray days. And it's the same when you live in the Sunshine States. It's not always July 7th or August 4th. Sometimes it's just another in a long line of scorching temperatures or humid days. And I think sometimes we get into a space where we're always looking to leave the place we're in, the season we're in, because we want to find relief in the next season. When we're really hot, we think I'd give anything for winter to be here. And then winter comes and we think I'd give anything to see the flowers in the spring. But it doesn't have to be that way. If we really make an effort to shine a long light on some areas that we really want to highlight and try to make at least one moment stand out in a day, we can make things a little different. So I know I went on a bit of a tangent there. I'm sorry about that. So let's get back to this whole idea of the solstice. So that word solstice, it comes from the Latin for sun, so sol, and the word for stillness or stopped. So it's really about the stopping of the sun. So that makes sense, right? So I knew, from my studies in religion and whatever, that this time of year holds significance through history. So I did some research and I found out more about what it meant for our friends in the ancient world. So I posted a link to that history in the show notes. So just to digest that. So for the ancient Egyptians, this time of year really, signified the rising of the Nile. For the Greeks, the start of the new year. And in ancient Rome, married women would make offerings to the goddess Vesta this time of year and seek family blessings. And in ancient China, this time of year was often associated with the yin forces of earth and femininity, if you're familiar with the yin yang. So I also found this out, which was interesting, that ancient Viking cultures used this time to discuss legal issues and resolve disputes. Why is that interesting? Well, I don't want to project anything onto ancient Viking culture, but I find it interesting that the longest day was the time chosen to resolve disputes. So a few minutes ago, I was talking about how the days blend together. But no matter how much we think we're coasting, we're also experiencing, seeing, and feeling, taking things in all the time. And if we push all that away or just slide by, eventually the things we ignore come into the light and we have to deal with them, examine them, find a way to live with them or maybe in spite of them or even for them. And so disputes we have or with people, real disputes, they don't just go away. And if they fester, they can leave scars on us in the deepest places. And we need to deal with things or at least go inside and get good with them. Now, you don't have to confront every person you feel has wronged you in some way. You don't have to go back to kindergarten and start going through your list. And you don't have to run around the globe apologizing to everyone you may have hurt or offended or seeking people out. Sometimes you just close your eyes and find that spot inside you where the event lives and shine a light on it, re-examine it, and find a way to get good with it. And once a year on the solstice, as the Vikings remind us, we get an external reminder of that. We get a little extra time to do that. There's a really powerful image in that. There's something very meaningful about having a little extra time, a little extra light to shed on our issues. I like the idea of the longest day being the day to hash out issues. Now, certainly in Viking times, I'm sure that it didn't always go peacefully and wonderfully, but it at least seems like the intent was there. And here's another thing. This is the midpoint of the year, right? So it seems like a natural time to take stock of what we've been up to and what we've hidden and to do a little examination, a little clearing out. It's a time to get ready for the next half of the year. And how nice would it be to do that feeling a little lighter? The whole decluttering and downsizing movement is all the rage right now. And I think it's good to extend that to our inner world. I recently did some cleaning out in my garage, which I'll probably be doing a future show on. And I had boxes and boxes of things from a storage locker. So I flipped the garage light on and I took a look in all those boxes. There were a lot of them. And you know what I found? Not much. It was all stuff. There were a few things in there that were really important, but things that I thought were so important to me years ago were now just piles. And here's the thing. The things that were special in those boxes, they were buried under mounds of that stuff. If I had taken the time to shine a light over the years, do some digging and tossing out over time, it might not have gotten so high. And if I hadn't taken the time to do the cleaning, I never would have found these things. So I know this episode really turned into a stream of consciousness. I'm sorry about that, but it just felt so natural to take a moment to focus on the longest day. Maybe I've been getting too much sun, or maybe I've just been sitting in my office for too long and haven't gotten enough. But either way, here's the tip. Take some time this summer to really reflect. And for our friends in the Southern Hemisphere, play this podcast again in December, or take some time this winter to reflect. Take some time to really think about an area in your life that you want to shine more light on. Think about a dispute that you might want to resolve, even if it's just inside, and maybe think about hashing it out in the light of day. Don't give up, and see what you can do with it. So that brings us to the end of this episode of the Nobody Guide to Life. Let me know what you're up to out there. If you like, you can join our Simple Spirituality group on Facebook and put something into the conversation. And you can always find out more about what we're doing at nobodiesview.com or thenobodybible.com. Or you can reach out to us on Twitter and Facebook at Nobody's View. If you like what you hear on this podcast, please consider a review or a subscription. We'd really appreciate it. Keep practicing and have a good week.